In this episode, you'll hear some sensitive topics. So with this trigger warning, if you have little ones around, please grab your headphones now.
And when I would go through this idea of like, let's practice together, like I'll come alongside you and I'll practice with you. Let's turn the camera on. They will start crying. And like just their nervous system was so reactive to the camera turning on, even sitting beside me. And I'm like, wow, it's not that they won't, it's they can't. Their nervous system is actually hijacked by chemicals right now that they can't do what they want to do. And this is like, it's so heart activating for us. Our heart goes out to them when you see that they are just not able to do what they love or want to do. And so that's when I was sort of like, hold on, we've got to do this a different way. And so that's where I started going back into the records to look to see like what's causing their nervous system to be so triggered at this point, because it logically doesn't make any, it's not adding up. This is not a 3D thing. This is not logicking. Like I can't talk logic to this person and then they're like, oh, okay, it doesn't impact me now. Something's happening that I can't see.
Yeah.
And so once I approached it in that way and really went back and explored, I found I could unhook their nervous system and they could see things in a new way without being hijacked in this chemically driven mess.
Folks, this is part 2 of my interview with last week's guest, Nadine, registered trauma therapist, multi-dimensional channeler, and quantum healer. With her newfound gift of accessing Akashic records, how does Natalie empower her clients to heal from their past? You've got to tune in to hear the second half of Natalie's inspiring story. Let's cue the intro. Welcome to the Boom Vision Podcast, the show that empowers you to live an enriching life physically, mentally, and spiritually. I am your host, Benjamin Ye, and I created this podcast to give you perspectives on how to strengthen your mindset so that you can build optimal health, create aligned wealth, and connect with your higher self. It's all interconnected. Let's get to work. Welcome back to episode 86 of the Boom Vision Podcast. I am delighted to share this part 2 of Natalie's interview. With her awakened gifts, how does Natalie empower others with their healing journey? Let's find out. Here's part 2 of Nadine's story. So Natalie, I'm curious, going back to a question I asked earlier, which is now that you're able to almost like transport yourself to the 5D world and see messages and work that you need to do to translate here to the 3D world, is that a form of channeling? Is that what you call it? Or like, how would you describe that to someone that's new to the concept of channeling to understand, because there's different ways that we receive information, and we're really just here to translate what that information can mean for someone, even though we might not understand what that information is, right? Like you were seeing, a tree, and it's like, I don't know what it is, but once you understand how it unfolds, oh, okay. Right. So I'm curious, like, would you describe that as a way of channeling, or would you use a different set of words?
Yeah, I feel like there's a few, I think channeling would be the umbrella, and then there's a few things that kind of fall under that umbrella and stream down. So, like, you can see the person, like the human that's in front of you, and then their past lives open up into the bubble, and you're accessing their records. So you're channeling that information to like through you, or you can see it. So there's several different ways of channeling. You can which involve all your senses. You can see the information, you can hear the information. Some people smell something different that comes in and you're like, I smell something else is here. And then you can kind of like open up your mind's eye or third eye and really activate your pineal and be like, okay, something's here. Same with like vocally, you can channel that something is here. Noises start to come out of you. Some people draw, where different images come forward as they start to draw them out. Or you can just directly like link in and channel it, like that, like Whereas that I feel like is the most raw version, is where you just drop in and whatever the being says comes out of you.
Mm,
And so that can sometimes we see that or hear that as like trance channeling,
mm,
or semi-conscious channeling. The way mine works, I like to do it through typing. So I
mm,
do written channeled messages where
mm,
I connect to the whatever being is there, and they speak into my mind, and
mm.
I hear what they're saying and I type it out. So different ways of channeling for sure, but they're all part of connecting to some sort of energy field that the
Yeah,
information is plugged into.
got it. And you've used this word a few times earlier too, Natalie, which is Akashic records. Can you just
Yeah.
describe a definition of that so my audience can understand? When you say Akashic records, what do you mean by that?
Yeah, no, good. So the Akashic records is basically this idea that our soul has a journey, and fractals, it comes down, it incarnates, it has whatever experiences it chose from its menu to experience, and it goes back up, it comes back down several different times doing this type of pattern where it's choosing to learn different things. And the idea is it kind of keeps repeating and getting a deeper understanding, a bit like an onion. Each time it experiences something it's curious about, it wants to go a little bit deeper and understand it more. And they say that Earth is really the place of the feeling. So a lot of times we incarnate here on Earth to feel what it's like to experience blah or blah blah blah, whatever those things might be. And so, which feels true because when I've gone other places, I'm like, these people, these beings don't have the same human feelings. And they kind of make fun of us
Mm.
in a little way, like, oh, right, you're so human. Like, you're so human. Like, we'll wait till you get over your feelings and then we'll move forward. And you're like, oh, really? Like, so there really is a lot of feelings here on Earth, which allow us to move through those experiences. Because really, we like, how can you experience something if there's no feeling connected to it?
Yeah.
So once we have this incarnation and we have these feelings, we can start to kind of look through like, why did you want to experience that? Why is it that you chose to come here to experience whatever it is that's feeling big for you at the time that you're coming in? Usually people come in to see me to, if they're having their Akashic records read, they're experiencing something that they want more answers to. And so they'll come in and basically the Akashic Records is a sort of etheric place that holds the soul's journey. And it keeps track of all the incarnations and all the experiences that have
Mm.
occurred throughout this soul's travels. And so when a person comes in and they say, I'm experiencing a repetitive pattern of, it doesn't matter where I go, people tend to like look at me, judge me, and turn and walk away. And you're like, what? That isn't this quite interesting. And they'll give like more detailed description around like how they're feeling judged or whatever. And so I'll pick out a theme. Okay, so you feel that you're being judged and this person is resentful towards you and there's some bitterness that's there and maybe some anger. So I'll confirm it. I'll be like, yep, it's held in your body. I feel it. I can see it. It's being confirmed through muscle testing. And then I'll say, okay, basically, the Akashic Records, this place etherically, needs to show me which part of your soul's journey had this real experience where allowing you still to feel this judgment and these, the bitterness coming off of other people. Where did this originate from? And that's when the bubble will open up, the Akashic part, or I guess file that contained the life where this particular pattern of behavior took place and originated, will open up into the movie, and it will start to play. And it will play, and I will say, like, oh, I see you, you're 5 years old. I see your mom and dad. You guys are all in a house together. I see you playing with a toy. And I can really describe out like what is being shown to me, and then explain like why this judgment is starting to happen. Like, you're playing with the toy nicely, but your parent is actually frowning at you. They're actually
Mm.
judging you for how you're playing with the toy. And so then they're like, oh, okay. So I've been on repeat through these cycles just to try to understand the dynamic I had in a different life and how that played out. a lot of times too, I will find people that are starting really the next step of their awakening, like another door is opening sort of for them, and they have left themselves either a repetitive pattern or a body pain, and they find me. It's almost like they program it into their life contract before they come into this incarnation that they would find somebody that can really break this pattern down for them and help them understand it through going into these readings. And so what ends up happening is I see the reading, I see the record open up with them in the house as a little child, and then we kind of move to a place of, hey, hold on, you're putting the toy down, you're getting up, you're walking outside, you're digging under this big tree, and you found this like gemstone and that you've left for yourself in a past life, or this treasure box with like these gifts that you've left yourself. And then this is what actually kickstarts the frequency within their light body, within their, etherics, that they can start working their missions and working their purpose and working to
Mm.
do whatever. But it's very common that people have left themselves some kind of clue in this 3D to get back into working in their soul purpose in a different way.
Yeah. Natalie, as I'm listening to you describe very beautifully how the Akashic record shows up for you, the image that comes to me, it's almost like if there's a personal diary of all your past lives and things, and it's like, stored in a library, so to speak, because of how much volume there is in that personal library of multiple lifetimes. It's like you have this ability when you see the bubble, it's almost like, I see this like little magnifying glass icon that pops up, go boop, and then it's like, all right, which chapter, which volume goes, and as you shine on it, then it's like, oh, then things will just kind of like unfold on how it is. And it's always there for everyone. The question is, do you believe it and do you allow access to that information to see what kind of unfolds for you? And it feels like you help communicate and translate that for people when they don't have that activated within themselves yet, but people can access it if they want to. It's just a matter of, okay, well, let me just have a guide first to help me sort of get the training wheels off, so to speak, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's exactly it. It's setting the intention of what do you want to see and why do you want to see. So
Right.
you have really, it works best if you have are really meditating on a challenge and you're like, this is a repetitive pattern, or like even a fear. If you have a significant fear of something, heights or water or skiing or snow, like some
Yeah.
kind of thing, and you know that the amount of fear you have really doesn't connect to the experiences you've had here in this earth life that you've had, the years that you've lived here. You've never had a problem with water, but you just
Yeah.
don't want to go near it, you don't like it, you actually are fearful of it. Then those are good things to be like, I'm going to try to access the bubble. I feel like what trips people up or where they get caught up is the name, when they're like, ooh, the Akashic record is supposed to be this like big place. It is so hard to access. And it takes a certain prayer to get there, and it takes a certain like way of entering and this formality to be able to access it. When we as humans put that kind of like ceiling on ourselves and expectation in place, then it makes it really difficult. And we believe we have to take a course and we should do it a proper way. And then we like really
Hmm.
get tripping over our own self. We're in our own way. And really, it can open up. If you can see it, it's real. If you can hear it, the voice will sound like you, but it's not that you have imagined this. This is trusting the process to unfold.
Yeah. I love how you say that because what comes to me as I'm hearing you is in someone's mind and how they approach it. If they perceive it as climbing Mount Everest, which is a very daunting task, well, that becomes your reality, and there's so many steps that you have to take to climb Mount Everest. But versus someone that sees it's just one plank on the bridge that I just need to get to. It's just one step. It's your perception of that inner world allows you the metaphoric distance of how much you need to go through to access it, but it's what do you allow yourself to perceive it as? Is it that difficult or is it that easy or somewhere in between? And that will change over time when you build a confidence and the ability and practice of it.
Absolutely. It is, we set our own Yeah, we get to set our own parameters and
Mm.
we are in charge. And I remember sitting with my angels and saying, like, how come I get to be in charge when you're the ones that are like these magical beings? And they're like, they looked at me like so stumped. And they were like, you have the body. You are on Earth and you have the body. You are in charge in the sense that you get to work. Like you get to tell us how to use the energy. You get to control the energy. And I was like, huh. That was mind blowing for me when I first started because I thought I was just at the mercy of the energy. Like this energy was
Mm.
coming to me, and I should just be thankful that I'm have these gifts, and I should just use it however it was supposed to be. And my spiritual team took it as I was functioning and doing well, and they should just keep cranking the energy because I was using it. So it must be going well for me. And so it wasn't until I sat with them and was like, actually, it's not going well. Like it's too much. Like I can be in Walmart and turn around and end up in somewhere else. Like I am no longer in Walmart anymore. Like
Oh,
what
wow.
are we going to do? Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's when there is this awakening that happens, you really have to navigate by being able to delegate these things and put the boundaries in place. And I
Hmm.
feel like that's one of the things that people don't talk about a lot is
Mm.
how do they navigate through the big energies?
Mm. Well, navigate, and what comes to me is also how do you allow when you are in that presence of energy to still have a sense of groundedness rather than be quote unquote drunk by it. You know what I mean?
Mm,
Because it just depends on your intentions and what it serves, I feel. Because
yeah,
without a good spiritual check, gut check of it, then it can go almost either way.
absolutely.
Beautiful. Well, so I have a question for you. As I was meditating in preparation of this interview, one aspect I want to bring some more light to, because there's so many different modalities out there, and when you think about spirituality, there's so much I don't know. And I feel like as I'm on this journey, like it's like kid in a candy store. So much just unfolds for me. But one thing I noticed is that whatever modality it is, whatever tool, whatever toy shows up, it's really just helping you bring more information. And with that information, there is this new awareness of information that you might not have known before. But then part of that following step is with that awareness, are you willing to change? And I'm wondering in your experiences in the sessions you provided or the clients you've worked with, like when it comes to someone having new awareness of new information, what has been the biggest challenge for them to actually start taking action to change? Or do they naturally just sit in the same vibration and set point?
Hmm. I would say their own trauma, their own experiences that are happened in their lives that they've lived will often keep them anchored in and repeating the same pattern. And so
Hmm.
they'll keep, it's a bit like they won't want to stand up. They won't want to, like, if you think of like metaphorically, like if you see an image of like the dam is broken, the water is all rushing, they grab onto a tree branch and they're like, I am not letting go. This is what is saving me. And but the
Mm.
part that they're not realizing is the water's rushing fast and it is scary, but the water is only a foot deep. They can't see the bottom and they are making the assumption that it is like 12 foot down. Eh, If they let go of the branch and stood up, they could walk out of the river. And that's the part, the unknown is what keeps people anchored. If
Mm.
they if we come alongside them and give them information, hey, I stood up. It's only 2 feet or a foot deep. Like,
Mm.
watch me walk out. And they watch you, and then they're like, huh! And they let go of the branch and they walk out. And
Mm.
that's what I feel like it is when we go in and we do healing sessions. We find what they're anchored to, and we
Yeah.
give them information and we come alongside them and we're like, it's totally fine. I know it feels like you might die if you let go, but let me give you this information from the past life where you actually did die in this scenario. Let me give you the information so that you can understand why and how and all the particulars around this. And then it unhooks itself in a
Mm.
rather quick and easy, effective way where the person changes their pattern and
Yeah.
shifts, and they don't stay stuck to a belief that keeps them safe.
Yeah. I get that, and I feel that. And what comes to me is that it's sharing the information and doing it in a way that is gentle because there's free will. And when you're ready for that, they ultimately have that choice. But sometimes I feel some people might share information in a very forceful way, which then allows people to not have the space to really digest and feel it. And so, and all the different people they might come across and when they're seeking for information, it's just my only ask is just, sit with it and see how does that resonate with you? Because, you also want to do it in a way that's in alignment, right? It can be fearful when you're stepping into the unknown. And
Absolutely.
and it's like, okay, allow yourself to feel, well, does it feel right? Are you ready
Yes,
for it?
absolutely.
Right.
And I think that we've all seen, if you can imagine that river and that person that's hanging on for their dear life, and they're not aware that they can stand up, or they've
Yeah.
never done that standing up before. We've all seen mentors or guides or parents or people that could be almost anybody. We're all unique and we all have free will, and we all have opportunities where we've been placed in a leadership kind of position.
Right.
And there's many different types of teachers that come in to assist a person that is hanging on and fearful of the unknown. And so it's like, how do you want to be approached when
Mm,
you're in that position? So now take those qualities that you would want and apply that to when you're giving information to somebody else.
mm,
And because we've seen the like forceful, if they don't do it, they're never going to be prepared for life. And we see this with parent children relationships where it's like, I have to be forceful and I have to like, really just drill it into them because they're not getting it. It doesn't help move anything any faster. Kids are
mm,
prepared to do things when they're ready and can hear what you're saying. They have to feel ready. It has to be a frequency that feels right for them. And we're humans as well, and they are humans as well. So it's the same principles apply when we're struggling with something, when your partner is struggling with something. Like we really have to sit and say, like, what would I like to experience if I was in that? Didn't know, feeling like I'm gonna die, log's going to break. Oh, like, and I also see the same scenario when I do my coaching. Like when I first started the divine transmissions with the entrepreneurs, I was like, man, like they just won't move. It's not that they won't, it's actually that they can't move. Like they're
mm,
so frozen in fear.
mm.
Like they, and when you turn, some of them would be camera shy and they would come in and say like, I have a fear of speaking and being seen. And I'm like, dude, you want to make YouTube videos. Like how do you think this is going to go? Like
Right.
they're like, that's why I came to see you, because I cannot do those things, but yet I feel strongly that that's what I want to do as my online business. And I'm like,
Mm,
okay, so let's go about understanding where this originated from. So
mm,
it's that, and when I would go through this idea of like, let's practice together, like I'll come alongside you and I'll practice with you. Let's turn the camera on. They will start crying,
mm,
and like just like their nervous system was so reactive to the camera turning on, even sitting beside me. And I'm like, wow, it's not that they won't, it's they can't. Their nervous system is actually hijacked by
mm,
chemicals right now that they can't do what they want to do. And this is like, it's so heart activating for us. Our heart goes out to them when you see that they are just not able to do what they love or want to do. And so that's when I was sort of like, hold on, we've got to do this a different way. And so that's where I started going back into the records to look to see like what's causing their nervous system to be so triggered at this point, because it
Hmm.
logically doesn't make any, it's not adding up. This is not a 3D thing. This is not logicking. Like I can't talk logic to this person and then they like, oh, okay, it doesn't impact me now. Something's happening that I can't see.
Yeah.
And so once I approached it in that way and really went back and explored, I found I could unhook their nervous system and they could see things in a new way without being hijacked in this chemically driven mess.
It's funny when you're sharing that story, it reminds me of this really old board game called Operations. I don't know if you ever played that or
Oh,
not,
yes.
where it's like if you happen to, I think you have like these tweezers, and when you're trying to take these, things on this board game, if you touch the rim of it, it just, the light will blink, and it's like, eh. And it's like, yeah, there's when someone is so tripped up because there's so many of these landmines that are there, it's like, wait, okay, this is something that might not be just from what you're experiencing this lifetime, but okay, let's go to your library, your personal diary, and see what exactly landed that landmine there in the first place.
Mhm.
Address it, feel it, let it release it, right? And then slowly, then that's all cleaned up. There is no more landmines, but it's a process. It takes a bit of patience and kindness to allow that to happen. Beautiful. So I want to ask you, you mentioned this before that there is this modality called Wesomily.
Oh, yes. Mhm.
Yeah, so tell me how you got in. What is Wesomily, and how has your progression from divine transmission, how does that unfold or connects to the Wesomily modality?
Yeah, so I essentially was training with my archangel, and I did the entrepreneurs and coming through and helping them and understanding their systems. And each door like kind of led to the next, and each task built on itself. And essentially, my guides came in and explained like my role is to support the collective in their ascension and understanding what is going on with their nervous system that stops them from moving ahead. And
Hmm.
so they started teaching me about the nervous system and how to like really place people in a calm state and remove some of those past traumas. But also they start giving me these like great training opportunities etherically, right? So they would give me astral traveled people that would come into my, I guess, my bathroom and ask for assistance. And they would take me some places and show me things, or they would need me to place my hands on them and move energy in a way that allowed them to shift and change. And so it was through this process of really helping several different types of beings, whether it's like astral traveled ones or spirits or multi-galactic beings. It was through this process of training with different ones that Wesomily was born.
Hmm.
And the word Wesomily means we're all family. And so it's the idea of me remembering that I did all these types of different ways of healing in all these different lifetimes that I lived and all these different places that I had went to really learn how to support humans in what they need to move into their ascension journey and feel good.
And this is one aspect of divine transmission, or is it something separate? What's the best way
Yeah.
to describe that?
This falls under divine transmission. It falls under healing, the healing portion of it, and it still is part of channeling in transmissions. So when somebody comes in, so there's two parts to Wasamali. The one part is you can book a single session. You can experience. You basically come in saying, "I have these fears or repetitive patterns," and then we look through. We find them in the different past lives, and we move through. There's also the second part is a Wasamali clinic where people say, okay, I've had an experience where I've gone ahead, booked a session, felt the shifts and changes, and I want to add this to my toolkit. Like
Hmm.
often it's Reiki masters or making people taking their Reiki that say, okay, like, wow, what an amazing tool to have. I want to add this. How do I take the course? And so Wasamali has this teaching part to it where It's a different type of teaching than traditionally we see. It's where I believe we teach by being together. We learn by
Mm.
being together, sorry, and we all are teachers. And so we activate each other by sharing our experiences. We are a big family. And so when we've lived together and had soul journeys together, we should come back together and we should share those journeys again to activate memories that we've had that we've done this. And so each Monday we have clients come in. Those clients come free, they don't pay. And us as practitioners that want to learn and want to have those activations and memories, we pay a membership to continue to keep being together and using our gifts and
Mm.
expanding. And so we go through and we use things. Right now, we're working on etheric numbers.
Mm.
And so, etheric numbers is a premise that everybody has energy coming through them, and it should be balanced energy. And if it's not balanced, you will have like hyperness of that energy coming through in one particular organ on your light body. And what happens on your light body eventually transfers to your 3D body. So, how my thyroid burned out because I was burning so much energy through me, let's stop that from happening if we can by helping our clients that come in through the Wesomily clinic. So we should know what the numbers should be on a light body, and we should learn how to balance those numbers out for the person. So
Mm.
each week we kind of go through another different type of thing. Right now we're working on clients because in the collective we're seeing a lot of depleted individuals that feel like they're exhausted, that they're having a really hard time, like feeling like they've gone to the gym but they can't get out of this rut. And so yeah, we check their numbers and we check their silver cord, but we work together to just really get an understanding of what can we do to help this person, and then yeah, we just find and build from there.
Beautiful. So now let me ask you this. I love to understand how you serve your clients. What are the type of either sessions or readings that you do? And who's your ideal client that typically when experiencing X, Y, or Z, that's when they find you?
Yeah, so there's many routes that kind of get people to me, but some of the ones that seem to be most popular, I guess, are those people with repetitive patterns. Or they say, like, I might have intrusive thoughts. These thoughts aren't mine, but they keep popping into my mind all the time. Or they will say that something hurts, or they've gone to a retreat and they haven't felt well after, being at a retreat, or that they know that there was something that happened in their lineage, like an ancestor has passed, or an ancestor keeps coming up in a dream. And so they're like, I think I should kind of come in and have a look and see why, if this ancestor is trying to tell me something. Or they feel emotions that they sort of are like, they're coming out of nowhere. And I don't know why these emotions keep coming up for me. So typically people come in when something's happening and they're not quite sure what. And then they come in. And then I will ask them, like, what happens in today's session as you're leaving? How will you know that this has been a positive experience? You'll be happy when you're leaving because X has happened. And then that's what we kind of start our intention with. Like, let's get to the root of whatever X is. And then I go through the process of balancing, asking each bone point, like with that Voila method, ask each bone point if they're balanced. I balance that out and then bring everything into alignment. I will often use my light language to balance their nervous system into like this quiet, calm space.
Mm.
And once they're balanced, I will then ask where the pattern of whatever they came in with the intention of is. Where do we need to be taken to really see this? Often it's off planet, often it's in a different space and time, in a different life. Get an understanding of what that person was doing in that lifetime and what we need to know. Oftentimes it's they want to start their mission, they want to start their soul purpose, why they came here to earth and what they wanted to really like feel fulfilled about. Those things I've all mentioned really lead them to me to start their fulfilled life
Mm.
forward, right? So
Yeah.
there's something that has really been kind of weighing on them and they're not really quite sure, and they're not sure what their purpose is, and there's like dabbling in a bunch of things, and body pains are starting to happen and they think something's not quite right. So they get to me and then we I will take them on a guided journey to wherever it is that they need to be,
Yeah.
and use my light language to just really talk to the beings that are there and really, bring them into a space of wholeness. If there's any missing particles or pieces or fractals of their soul, I will bring those together and bring that back in. Sometimes people are missing pieces. If they're wanting to start a new venture, then I'll be like, okay, these are some of the things that have been missing, but now you're starting this venture. It calls for them to come back. So let's
Mm.
bring those back in. And so that kind of is typical. I make sure that their silver cord is connected to their planets, that their energetic numbers are in balance, that there's nothing going on with their DNA. So I will take a strand of their DNA, I will observe it, see what it looks like, make any changes if anything needs to be changed, and then
Mm.
that helps with things like psoriasis and allergy type symptoms and yeah, just genetic type things that can come up. So I will do some DNA work often. But then once those things have happened, the person will start to talk to me. Sometimes they come in saying that they feel like there's a spirit attached to them, an entity is attached to them, darkness is following them. And we go in and we have a look, and that's typically not the case.
Mm.
But it is oftentimes people have heard of it and feel it. And so we go in and support that. So people find me on Instagram typically when I'm sharing information about what's going on in the collective right now, and you might be feeling
Mm.
this way or that way, and then they find me and book sessions.
Got it. That'll be my last question where I'll ask you where our audience can find you. But I have just a couple more questions before we wrap
Yeah.
up on today's interview, Natalie. One which is, you mentioned about the book earlier of The Emotion Code. Is there another book recommendation that you have for our audience where and by listening to this interview, they're drawn to having more understanding of just spirituality and energy? Anything else you feel can be helpful that they can read that can help them along that journey to have a better understanding?
Yeah, absolutely. So I found it really helpful to read the book Many Lives, Many Masters. And in this book, I found it was really helpful because it resonated deeply with me, given that I was already doing a type of therapy. And this is a psychologist that's speaking, and he uses a hypnosis process and talks to his clients. And some of the things that he discovers is quite eye-opening. So that really expanded my mind to be able to see what is possible
Mm.
out there. Because I was coming from my 9 to 5 job, I was in a space where I was like, anything outside of traditional therapy is like, therapy is a licensed practice. So anything that doesn't fall within the norms of doing that must be bad because it's not licensed and regulated, and they shouldn't be doing it. And so, yeah, that once I realized, he's in there as a psychologist doing like hypnosis and accessing people's higher selves, like, this is incredible. And this information he was pulling out of these things were so dramatically shifting this individual, the client. So I would say if that book has been great to knowing what is available and what's out there. But if individuals really want something that resonates, is find something that's very similar to what they're already doing
Mm.
and have a real look and see what is it that would expand their mind. What would it be that would make them realize there's more out here and available? It's almost like if they can do it, so can I, right?
Mm. Yeah. A lot of it is just expanding the boundaries of what's possible. And sometimes
Yeah,
you're just being able to, oh, listen to that story or read that book. And it's like, oh, I didn't even know that was a new playground I can go into. Oh, okay. Then, you're stretching that metaphoric rubber band, so to speak, of where the boundaries might be.
absolutely.
So, Natalie, the question I always ask my guests is if the time traveling was real, the DeLorean was real, and you can travel back in time at any point in your life and speak to your younger self, how far back would you go, and what message would you give your younger self?
Well, I think, that is part of inner child healing. So I do that where I go
Mm,
back and talk to myself in different times. I feel like one of the things that I would do if I had only one opportunity to go back and do something would be to go back into my years where I was hitting college years.
mm,
And I would tell myself to live my life in the way that I didn't have shame or guilt.
mm,
That I just live an age appropriate age and don't try to look too far into the future to try to like obtain my goals, not try to like be something I'm not, but to just try to just live in that present moment
mm.
and don't worry about what people are thinking or how they might observe me, and to just be happy and content without
Yeah.
striving for anything.
I feel like it's such a relevant advice to give even to adults now in the present moment, just being in the present moment. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Natalie, where can our listeners find you if they feel drawn to reach out and connect with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am on Instagram under the name Divine Transmissions. And on you'll see all my content. I do regular clips and posts around energy updates and things to just be mindful of. And on my link tree in my bio, there is a link that's there that will show you whether it's a class that you're looking for or a workshop or course. That's all outlined right there in the link.
Fantastic. And I'll include your information in the show notes, so it'll make it easier for our audience to connect. So I guess before we wrap up, Natalie, do you feel there's a message you would like to share with the audience?
Yeah, to just not worry as much, really. Like
Mm,
our worry it's really hard to stop worrying as a human. But once we
mm,
get past that other side, it's almost like when you fly a plane, right? Like you have to go through like the turbulent and then you get above it and then you're in the clear sky and you can fly smoothly. A lot of us fly in that turbulence and are fearful of going a little higher. And so it's okay to go higher and to let some of the things that you worry about, you don't hold them. Not because they don't matter, it's just because you don't have control over it anyway. And
mhm,
so it's and then just developing some practices around like how do you let go of some of these things. Saturday night we do go into some of those practices. Like I do a channeling class and we talk about like discernment and some of those practices and grounding and things like that. But I would say if it's to catch yourself as you're in the turbulent and to catch, hey, I think I have one worry after another worry after another worry that I'm trying to address. And then it's realizing I actually don't have control of the outcome of those things anyway. And so then it puts you into a higher frequency where that
mm,
doesn't bother you. Move through it in a way that's easier. And it's you can also tell that you're doing that because your analytical brain is engaged. And so if you think of the image of somebody again in that river and they are doggy paddling, and their doggy paddling is can equate it to looking for solutions. They're trying to stay
mm,
afloat, they're paddle, 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 and they're trying to get to the other side. But in reality, they would use less energy if they just rolled over onto their back and floated. And if while they're floating, the current's going to take them to exactly where they need to be. And it's more beautiful than they ever could have analytically thought of a solution for. And so, what I find is oftentimes as people are trying to break down a problem that they're having and analyze it, that they're missing out on where the current's actually trying to take them.
mm.
And if they just surrendered to like whatever the outcome is, I mean, I am powerful and have the resources and ability to just get myself out of whatever it is. If I land in a place that is horrible and terrible, I am
Mm.
secure enough within myself that I know I will be okay. If
Yeah.
And then we can kind of allow that current to guide us wherever it is. It's when we fight the current that we end up in messes. It's not when we go with the current.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm feeling something right now. I love that you brought this up because when I think about my own journey, And I've gotten now in this place where, yeah, when things happen, if things shift, if someone canceled, it's crazy because now it's like I'll have a thought if I'm looking at my calendar, it's like, oh, this feels kind of busy. And then something just shifts and it freed up. I was like, what? And it just seems like I'm just going with the flow. And it's like, wow, okay. And now it's rather than being attached of, oh, no, why that person cancel, whatever it is, like, okay, the universe just wants me to go in this direction. So I just be with it. I'm floating, so to speak. And the distinction I want to make is that it took me some time to get to this place of going with the flow. And part of it to allow yourself to be comfortable to go with the flow for me was that my old paradigm of reacting when something happens, that knee-jerk reaction of I need to fix it, right? If I'm floating, but if I feel unsafe, then it's like I need to grab a branch, right? Or something because it doesn't feel.
Mhm.
If you are still in that reactive state, even though your intention is still wanting to float, then it's like you're really one leg's in going with the flow and one leg's not. And he's
Mhm.
getting these mixed signals, and it's harder to allow to be that present versus just reactive. And so I feel like part of my journey is, well, I need to upgrade my language. I need to upgrade my energy and frequency of like, wait, is my paradigm, am I the balloon that is filled with air or is it with helium? Right? And maybe it's a mix of both to transition, whatever it is, whatever's a gentler way. But it's identifying having the awareness within myself. Am I still in a reactive state or am I in a flow state? And maybe it takes some steps to get there, but if I do it with the awareness, then that transition for me can be smoother rather than just being mixed signals. I don't know, something just compelled me to want to just share that.
When you were talking about the mixed signals, I was getting information coming in that if we look like we have it under control, like we look like we've got it figured out, we've got a plan, we know what we're doing, we like, if this happens, we're going to do this. And if that happens and it doesn't work out, we're going to do this. And we like get on this roller coaster of like really going quick and fast and like planning it all out, this anxiousness, right? Our guides don't have room to step in to support us. And so they're like, okay, you got it figured out. I'm just going to step back and stay here. And so we miss opportunities where they can come in and support us. And if our goal is to collaborate and work with and move on to our awakening and our ascension journey, then we need to find space to invite them in. We need to find space to trust them. We need to find space to be acceptant of that support and help. We oftentimes, what I see is people get into this anxious state of it was supposed to be this, and then if I do that, then it's going to move, and I'll have to do that. And they get all worked up, and then they're like, and now my guides aren't even here, and they're not helping me. And I'm like, wait, you calculated it all out, and you made your own decisions, and now you're in your own mess, and now you want someone to come help you? Like you weren't working with and inviting, and like you've missed a few things along the way.
Yeah. And I want to add to that. People think of the word surrender, and depending on what life experiences they've gone through, it can mean different things. So it's not like all of a sudden you're letting go of the of your wheel in your car, so to speak, and just closing your eyes, just like, okay, just take me. It's not like it's not so drastic as that.
Mhm.
But the image that came to me as I just listened to you, Natalie, is like if your both hands are always on and you guys want to be able to, hey, you might need to make a right turn, but you don't even have space for them to even grab the wheel to give you that gentle guidance, then it's like, well, maybe one step is just letting go of one hand,
Mhm.
if that's easier for you, right? It's not complete surrender of like, okay, just complete let go, but it's maybe just letting go of one hand. Hey, now I have a free hand to receive things. I'm not preoccupied. That's the mental image I get. It can be a gentle transition, it doesn't have to be so abrupt.
Absolutely. So, what that translates over to 3D and what it looks like is when you wake up in the morning and you are aware that you have to get groceries today, but you have two different towns or two different grocery stores that you frequented and you don't really care which one you use. Both towns are pretty much in the same distance and radius away. You can ask your guides, hey, let's invite opportunity for them to add input. let's invite them to take part of our steering wheel and help support and guide and work with, collaborate, because collaboration is part of what opens that doorway. And so we can say, you know what, getting groceries today, that's my hard line. Like it's today, it has to be, we need to eat. This is human need. Like this is the intention. But I'm welcoming where would be best to go.
Mm,
And then you can just kind of close your eyes and feel for where the bubble or the energy or, the pull might be. And
yeah.
one side, you're going to have emptiness, and the other side, you're going to be like, something's over here. Something keeps making me turn this way.
Mm,
And that will be the way that you've been like, grocery store A, grocery store B. Okay, I keep being pulled to grocery store B side. Okay. So, and then when you end up going to grocery store B side, you're like, this place has so many sales on today. Like, what's the deal with all the sales? They have the best products ever. Like, I've never seen their products look like this. It's amazing. And the parking is like straight out front. Like just like
mm,
somebody left this parking spot for me. Like when you walk in alignment like that, things just open up.
yeah. Totally. Totally. Man, I feel like I could just jam with you for hours. But I want to say in closing, I just want to share, thank you so much for being who you are. I remember vividly the first time I was introduced to you was our mutual friend Tian. And it was because I heard your voice. And immediately within the first second, my wife and I heard your voice on a voice clip that he was playing. And it's like, I looked and I was like, oh, I could just feel the energy of it. Wow. That's someone I just want to get to know. And so I want to acknowledge that you're a warm light, but also just a gentle space that allow people to just be. And I appreciate that about you. And whatever I can do to help amplify your light, please let me know. It's been such a pleasure having you on our show today. And I look forward to collaborating, co-creating many things as it unfolds.
Well, it's beautiful. Thank you so much for having this discussion with me and allowing me to come in and share what I do with your audience. And it has felt so good, so fulfilling, so warm to be able to share that with your listeners.
Beautiful. Thank you, Natalie.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed hearing the second half of our interview with Natalie today. If there's one quote I can share that best summarizes today's interview, it is this. Our challenge as human beings on this planet is to live in the present moment as much as we possibly can. When we're focused on some points in the future or are letting someone else tell us how things should go, we're neither present in a particular moment nor responsible for ourselves. But when we seek the perspective of the masters, teachers, and loved ones, they help us empower ourselves to be who we need to be in any given moment. Providing truth, information, and support is the role of the Akashic records. This quote is by Dr. Linda Howe. I hope this two-part interview with Natalie Nadine inspires you to be open to new possibilities, to ask the question of what is possible rather than what's not. If you enjoyed today's interview, please share this episode with who you feel can resonate with Natalie's story. Please subscribe to this Boom Vision podcast if you want to thrive together. Until next time, folks, be kind to yourself. Be in the light. Be you. Thank you so much for tuning in to my Boom Vision podcast. If you'd like to find out more about me and this podcast, head over to benjaminyeh.com. That's spelled BenjaminYeh.com. If you haven't already, click subscribe, and I'll catch you next time.